When I used to write a lot more about Elon Musk, I used to get a lot of his kind of fanboys, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Paris agree, Ben disagree. Okay, next statement.
As long as we live under capitalism, they will only use technology to increase exploitation.
We can develop great technology without an Elon Musk.
I would even go a step further. So I agree with what Paris says, but right now, because of the position they have, they are hindering development.
I think that the reliance on American technology also means that once you have all these Europeans using these platforms, all these European businesses subscribing to these services, the kind of economic benefits of that rebound to the United States.
Do you think scientists have a moral duty to refuse to work on projects like drones or surveillance tech?
Ooh.
Welcome to Studio Fakto at Manifesta. I'm Laura and I'm your host. I told you we're going to talk about technology with two guests, Ben van Dupen and Paris Marx. I'll introduce them in a few minutes, but before that, I want to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Fakto is an alternative media that tries to answer the question, how does the world really work? And for that, you'll find here information that you won't find in any traditional media. But for that, we need your support. So please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. Hi, Paris.
Hello. Great to be
Hi,
here.
Ben.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So, Paris, you're a tech critic?
Yes.
Does it mean you hate being here, like with mics and screens and...
No.
No?
No.
It's
I accept that we live in the modern world.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. What about you, Ben? You're the head of the study department of the Workers' Party of Belgium. It sounds like you are surrounded by books and stuff. So, do you use technologies?
No. So what we do is every morning when I come to the office, I take the next chapter of Capital and start reading. No, of course not. I think it's a little bit the same with Paris. We can use a lot about the technology, especially because it's about information, how to get to the information that we need to understand the world in order to change it. And so we try to use it the best we can.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later in the show, aren't we?
Totally. I would even say we could think about the book as a technology itself, right?
Interesting.
You know?
That's going to be the next show then.
Yeah. Not a digital technology, but, an older form, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let me introduce you. Paris, you're from Canada. You're a podcast maker, an author and a tech critic. You host the successful podcast Why Tech Won't Save Us, where you discuss what new technologies and the companies behind them are doing to this world. And you've written a book on the vision of the Silicon Valley on transportation. There is a lot of money to be made in tech. And you're not always playing fanboy of the technology sector, aren't you? Do you get a lot of backlash being a tech critic?
It depends. At times, yes. It really depends on the moment, I think, and the person I'd be criticizing or the technology or company or what have you. You know, when I used to write a lot more about Elon Musk, I used to get a lot of his kind of fanboys, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sending me emails and things like that. You know, it's not as, with AI, I feel like it's not as bad, but, I guess it depends. I'm also used to it to a certain degree as well.
And then we go to Ben. So I said it, but you're the head of the study department of the Workers' Party of Belgium. You have a PhD in quantum physics, and you've written many articles on the use of technology under capitalism. You feel like you can combine your interest in politics and science now?
Indeed, when I was doing my PhD at university, I was also already involved with organizing the party, which was a little bit separated. But then I really found and understand that there's a lot of things we can learn in science that we want to apply somewhere. I was doing quantum physics and I saw, okay, but there's so much more about this. Why are these kind of technologies being pushed? And especially if you start understanding the technology, on the one hand, you're extremely enthusiastic about it. But on the other hand, you also notice how easy it is to tell stories that are not correct, but that are there to gain money. So in gaining this interest, I thought maybe I should use this knowledge and this way of thinking to try to put it into practice. And so that's why I joined the study department.
Wait, you start doing the interview now. So we'll talk about that later. And what about each other? Did you meet before? Did you Google you or?
Only in the past few days. No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a big fan of Paris podcast from when it started. I learned a lot from it. So when this event came up, I thought, let's send him an email, and he gladly agreed to come to Manifesta. So I'm very happy about that.
That's good. And did you meet Ben before? Did you know him? No. So you met him here. Yeah. Last question, maybe to get to know you a little bit better. What in your life did radicalize you? What was the thing you said, okay, I have to get engaged. Things are not going right. I want to do something. Is there one thing that happened?
I don't know if there was a specific thing. The thing that stands out most for me, certainly, when I was younger, was learning about climate change and what was contributing to that. And of course, in Canada, we were having a lot of debates around the oil industry and, whether that should be growing, what it was going to mean for reducing Canada's emissions. So I would say that was like the moment that really made me start to pay attention to politics in a more concerted way. And then, obviously I continued down the path from there. Yeah.
And you went from climate change to IA and technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, that's related in many ways as well.
It is. It is. What about you, Ben?
When I was working with the pioneers movement, I had the opportunity to visit Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon when I was 17. And I never forget about the fact that, okay, we come here, we try to do stuff here, but then you see what kind of injustice there is in the world. And really this pushes me to say, okay, it should not be like this, and let's try to change it. And that's really this one specific moment that I remember that I opened up my eyes, because you could see the people there resisting and really fighting against it. So I thought, okay, it should be possible. And that's where a lot of things changed.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you too. Ben and Paris, now that we know you a little bit better, it's time to dive into your ideas on technology. I'll introduce you a little bit the debate, and then you'll have statement, and I will ask you what you think about those statements. So technology is evolving amazingly fast. It's everywhere around us. We see it in the rise of AI, in the use of our social media, but also in our commercial lives with Amazon, cars, even self-driving cars. We can all feel the presence. On one hand, it makes our life easier, but it can also feel like a threat. Our job's in danger. Is our data everywhere? And what has Elon Musk to do with all of this? We at Fakto ask the question, is this threat real? And if so, where does it come from? Who's behind it? And who's benefiting from all of this? So, guys, I see you found the signs. That's good. First statement. The technological evolution is threatening us. What do you think? Paris agree. Ben disagree. Okay. Next statement. Okay. You'll get the chance to answer. Explain. Paris, you want to start?
I think it depends on the type of technological development we're talking about, right? I don't think that technology is inherently a threat, but I think that under this system that we live in right now, this capitalist system, under the social and economic relations that we have, the way that technology develops is in a way that is exploitative, is in a way that is designed to attack workers' rights. Obviously, we're seeing the climate impacts of what's happening. Beyond that, we have these conversations constantly about the effects of social media on society, the effects of these other technologies. And I would argue that the technologies are developed in that harmful way because they need to maximize shareholder value, because they need to maximize profits and the power of these major companies. And we can develop technology in a very different way, but that would require changing kind of the context, changing the social and political context in which that technological development happens. And so under this moment, I would say, yes, technological development is a threat.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Ben, then?
Well, I disagree, and then I will say mostly the same as No, because...
Yeah, you'll take it in the other way.
Yeah, because of course, so what we see, as long as we live under capitalism, they will only use technology to increase exploitation. They will only use technology to increase the control of workers, of citizens. Any kind of positive byproduct thing is like an accident in their perspective. Okay, if we can use it to connect people all across the world to fight the capitalists, it's a byproduct for them, but I think it's an opportunity for us. The reason why I said no is that I disagree with the fact that it's the technology that's threatening us by itself. It's the way it's used. And so this opens up opportunities. We can use technology for the good of the people. We can use technology to foster...
I see, I don't know.
To foster the struggle. For this, we do need to understand the technology in itself and find the ways to use it.
You wanted to react.
I don't see technology as a tool, right? I see technology as fundamentally political. And so I think there are definitely technologies that we can seize, but I think there are other technologies that once they're developed, they contain kind of the social relations embedded within them.
You have some example?
You can think of, for example, how, if you think of like a nuclear power system, that requires a degree of centralization that a distributed renewable system does not. Right? I would argue, even if we look at something like generative AI, this is a technology that requires a mass centralization of computing power, that requires the creation of immense amounts of data. So the surveillance apparatus that these private companies have created on us in order for that to be collected. And companies that are at such a scale that they're large enough to actually invest in this infrastructure to capture all this data. I would argue that sure, there are certain technologies that we can seize, that we can use for better means. But I also think a lot of the newer technologies that we're seeing developed right now have these capitalist relations embedded within them and thus are inherently a threat and need to be challenged.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, you want to say something?
Of course, I want to react to that because it's important that we do not make it in itself a semantic discussion when you talk about technology. It's important to know what we're talking about. I completely agree. The way technology is developed determines the way and the choices that are being made. And because it's developed to increase shareholder value, because it's developed to increase the control, like if you look at artificial intelligence systems being trained on Palestinians to better control the people and then being brought to our cities to do facial recognition or this kind of behavior recognition so that right-wing and neoliberal governments can way more crack down on protest. Of course, inherently, we should fight these kinds of technologies. But then, and that's why it's called a little bit semantic, the idea of neural networks, the idea of deep learning algorithms, which are behind ChatGPT, which are behind the generative AI boom that we have right now, I think there is a lot of usefulness in itself. And I think this will only come about when we build the conditions in which these new kinds of technologies can be developed. And I think an interesting example of this, for me, when we talk about generative AI, is the example of DeepSeek, because it showed that there is not just one way to develop technology, even though it really goes more or less in the similar direction. They want to make a chatbot, but where the big American companies make those chatbots based on, I want it to be as capital intensive, put as much money in it as possible, which means that energy and climate impact is completely irrelevant, and we just need to do it with as much as data as possible. The DeepSeek people, whether or not their intention was the same or not, they just had a different circumstance. They didn't have access to the best chips and these kind of things, so they developed different models that are less power consuming, that are less impactful in certain ways. And for me, this shows that it's the way the technology is developed in the circumstances that determines this. And I believe that we can change those circumstances and then also use types of technologies that are useful for the people.
Okay, thank you. No, it's really interesting. And this is exactly what we want to do at Fakto. It's just opening debate within the left and the progressive world on thinking what's the future and how we are going to use it, isn't it? The second statement: Elon Musk is the most powerful man alive. Again! But Ben will start then. Okay, Ben, tell us why.
So I'm saying yes, because of course it's not him as a person, but you see that the technology billionaires, which all by accident happen to be American, they are all in right now on technology. I think that if you look at the way they gathered wealth from a historical perspective, I don't think we've been in a period before where there has been so much concentration of wealth inside the hands of only a few people. And Elon Musk is the richest man. I mean, we should check the Forbes checker right now. He's the richest man in the world.
I think he might have ticked down one spot.
No. He regained it.
Yeah. All right.
So there's right now a race. It's
and
interesting.
who with?
Larry Ellison.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's between Elon Musk and Larry Ellison as we speak.
A lot of people don't know.
No one knows Larry Ellison. But
who's...
last week, he gained in one day $89 billion. And Larry Ellison is the CEO
of Oracle.
Oracle. Yep. Okay.
And so to put that in perspective, $89 billion.
I don't have a perspective on that. I'm just like, what is it? Exactly.
It's about 1.8 million years of work for a typical Belgian worker. So we are in a situation in which one person can gain in one day the same amount of money as a normal worker gains in 1.8 million years.
Okay.
So it's just
I'm sure he's just very productive.
Yes, he is, isn't he? No. Eventually, like, what?
Of course, he's extremely productive and he completely gains. So this is why I say they are very powerful, because they start using this money and this power to try to get their position together and to strengthen their position. They lay awake at night thinking, what should we do with all the billions?
Ben,
and they use it.
Time's running.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
You were worried about me talking too much.
Okay, so I want to know what Paris thinks about that. You said he wasn't.
I don't disagree with any of that.
No, yeah.
I just still think that Donald Trump or whoever is the president of the United States is still more powerful. Certainly, their power is shaped and informed by the billionaire class in the United States, by the wealth and the power that they are able to exert. I agree that say Donald Trump would not be using the pressure of the American government on, say, Europe or Canada or other countries on tech policy, for example, if it were not for the power and wealth of these American tech billionaires. But even then, I think we can still see Donald Trump turn around and do things to these billionaires that they would not want him to do. And so for that reason, while I completely agree that the tech billionaires are immensely powerful, just yesterday we saw Elon Musk kind of zoom into, do a video call into a far-right rally in the UK, telling them to choose violence and to overthrow the UK parliament. So these people are immensely powerful. They are pushing far-right movements around the world, but I still think that the American president is more powerful.
Thank you. Statement 3. We need people like Musk for innovation. Without them, we're standing still. Okay, you agree that you disagree. That's good. Okay, Paris.
It's kind of like what I was talking about before. I think that technological development is related to the social and economic conditions in which it happens. I think someone like Elon Musk is the product of the 1990s and the privatization of the internet, right? The internet was privatized in 1995. There was a lot of kind of capital and investment that flooded into these new kind of internet-based tech companies. And there were a lot of people in that moment who really lucked out, who didn't necessarily have a proper business model, who didn't have a company that was going to be like a big success. For example, Elon Musk, his first company was Zip2. The board tried to get rid of them. It tried to get rid of him. Actually, they might have actually gotten rid of him in the end. And they basically engineered a sale to Compaq, a previous computer maker, to get rid of it right before the dot-com bubble went bust. So he was not some like kind of genius tech startup founder or anything like that. He was someone who lucked in on a moment where there was a lot of economic excitement about this new sector. And we see that with a lot of these tech billionaires who dominate us today. It's not because they are so intelligent, so brilliant, so smart, so much better than the rest of us. It's because they happen to be in the right place at the right time. They were very lucky. They made a lot of money as a result of that. And now they try to use that money to convince us that actually they are a superior being. They're so much smarter than us. And that is not true. Yeah.
Thank you.
We can develop great technology without an Elon Musk.
Yes, with you too. Okay, Ben.
I would even go a step further. So I agree with what Paris says, but right now, because of the position they have, they are hindering development. They are hindering development of new technologies. They say the solution to everything, invest more in AI, in our AI. Well, no, we should invest in people. And yesterday we had a very, very interesting talk about people using LLMs to support social workers in Antwerp. Really see what...
LLM, can you...
using chatbots.
Ah, yeah, sorry.
Making chatbots to
I'm not
answer...
used to the
answer questions.
You don't know the lingo, yeah.
And so this is real innovation because, in the end, they decide, is it really helping or not? And when it helps, it's a step further. When it's not, there is no prerogative or some kind of push, you should use it. No, we just go on and maybe develop other kinds of tech, maybe not technology, like computer technology, but maybe other social constructions are way more useful in these kind of cases. And that's what technology and innovation should be about. It's about making things that are better for the people and not for the profit.
And do you have some examples of that?
I think what we would really want to see, like if we were serious about developing technology that actually serves the public instead of serving these major corporations, is actually to make technology development something that is back within the public sector, that is not shaped by profit, that is not shaped by the need to increase shareholder value. I think we really got this wrong in the 1990s when the internet was privatized. That was like,
Can you explain us a little bit about that?
Well, the internet was, developed in the public sector. It was, funded by the US government and the US Defense Department, and then was eventually privatized in the 90s. And at that moment, there was a debate in the United States, because the United States kind of controlled it, as to whether it should just be fully privatized or if there should be still like kind of an aspect of, public service, a kind of public sector dimension to it. But obviously the private sector was very powerful and pushed for it just to be given over fully to the private sector in that moment.
In the 90s also, it was this.
Exactly, right? This is like peak neoliberalism. The piece of that too is that then in Europe, in Canada, where I am, we kind of accept that trade-off as well, right? This notion that technological development, and in particular digital technology, is something that needs to be left to the private sector, and that the public sector shouldn't really have involvement in that beyond funding kind of university research that is increasingly commercialized as well. And so I think what we would want to get back to is actually making technological development something that is a prerogative of the public sector much more directly. Actually setting up, say, government agencies or whatever that have a directive to develop technology for the public good, rather than always relying on this technology that's developed by the private sector to increase profits at the expense of all of us, really.
Yeah, Ben, you talked about that in a book, how the public sector...
3 years ago, we wrote a book called Do the Switch with many other authors of the party. And then we wrote one chapter about technology. And it was interesting to look around the world. Where are these kind of experiments that's going on about how do you make new technology without relying on the private sector and the profit motive there. And we talk about why internet should be free and these kind of things. But also we found not so very far, like a couple of kilometers that way, in France, that they still have some remnants of a fund that they use to fund social media creators, YouTubers, to make content that is not depending on advertisement, that's not depending on the YouTube algorithm, because the funding for that content comes from applications that they do at the government. You can say a lot about the way the applications go, but you see that the content that comes out of it is way more informative, way more starts from what people really want to know and what they need to become better in life, instead of what the advertisers and what the YouTube algorithm would check, because those creators, they do not need to sell themselves for the advertisement money. They just can start making good stuff. And I think this kind of model can really transform, because that's good about digital technology. It changed quickly. We have TikTok. Before it was Instagram. Before it was Facebook. So there is this cycle.
We won't have to take all that back again.
No,
we can think of taking what's going to be new in a hand then.
And for this, I think there is a lot of room to create incentives for what will be the next, for instance, social media.
Interesting. Thank you. The fourth and last statement. It's not technology that's bad. It's the system. We talked about that a little bit. Okay.
Sure,
that was easy. That was easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Paris, you want to start?
I think we've already kind of discussed it, right?
Just
yeah, absolutely. The system shapes the technology that comes out of it. And so if we change the system, we change the technology, in my view.
So you're linking the technology to the fight to the system then?
Absolutely. I still think that in this moment, if the system can't be changed, I think there's still reason to combat certain technologies that are causing harm. But ultimately, if we're thinking about like the root of the problem, in that case, obviously, it's the system that shapes these technologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think with the party, we go for socialism. But on our route towards that, let's use technology to the best to support that struggle.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question for you. It's kiss, marry, and kill. So you'll have to say who you would kiss, who you would marry, and who you would kill. I will say the three of them. Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and owner of X. Or Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. So...
Oh my.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think I was like, you can answer, then you can explain why you answer that. Kiss, marry, or kill.
This is like the impossible choice.
I know, it's the game. You can choose.
I think you should make Ben go first.
Ben, tell us. Don't do the three. Choose one.
Kiss Elon Musk.
You kiss Elon Musk. Okay.
Because I think this guy really needs some love in his life. If you see the way
well done.
I mean, I think he has a terrible life. You need to decide every night what to do
like
with
that.
300 billion.
He should be.
I think he needs some love in his life. Marry Jeff Bezos.
What?
Because he doesn't like unions, so he will probably not agree to marry, and that means kill Sam Altman, and maybe that's also good for the development of AI, that this guy is not too long on the...
Okay, you go hard on that, huh? you just killed okay.
Interesting. I think I would kill Elon Musk.
Yeah. I would too.
Yeah.
Marry.
This one seems obvious to me, especially with his promotion of the far right recently.
Yes,
and,
it's just...
I've hated Elon Musk for a very long time. I think I would kiss Jeff Bezos, because I'm sure I can, put up with at least that much. And I think I would marry Sam Altman, actually, because even though I hate what he's doing with generative AI, he seems like maybe the least annoying of the three. if I had to put up with one of them for like a longer period of time. Yeah.
Maybe you could convince him of changing his
I don't know. I think he's a bit too delusional for that.
It is. It is, isn't it? Well, it wasn't easy. Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Ben, for this conversation. I conclude that we should not fear technology itself. I think we can agree on that. We should fight the hands that's in it. The world will not be taken over by robots. It's not over yet. And because we still have some questions from the audience and we know that we can be challenging, you can already put your sign back underneath. If you're still watching, it means that you, just like us, are looking for answers to understand the world. So now is the moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can help us to bring those answers to the biggest audience possible. Hello, I'm a geography student and I would like some insight into the seriousness of being so dependent on American technology companies.
Also a fellow former geography student.
Really?
Yeah. My master's is in geography. I think it's a serious issue, right? For many different reasons. Obviously, we've talked about how, many of these technologies have harmful and exploitative impacts. And of course, many of those technologies would be developed by American companies and rolled out across the world. I think that these American companies obviously pay much more attention to the American market and American kind of political dynamics when they're making decisions, and not so much what is happening in Europe. But I think that really the key piece here is that, I think one of the things that we have been talking about in recent years is, how the European economy is doing. Can it keep up? All this kind of stuff. I think that the reliance on American technology also means that once you have all these Europeans using these platforms, all these European businesses subscribing to these services, the kind of economic benefits of that rebound to the United States, right? They're brought back to the US. And that's part of the reason why you see the American economy and the American stock market doing so much better than other, say, Western countries, because they control the dominant tech companies that dominate these other markets. And so, obviously, the kind of health of the capitalist economy is not the top priority for me. But if we're thinking about actually creating kind of, the economic foundation that can provide the social benefits that we expect and things like that in our society, depending on these tech companies and allowing these companies to take so much of kind of the collective wealth that we have and then return it to the United States, that obviously undermines the system that we have. And obviously, if the companies were based here, if the tech was developed here, we would have much more say and much more ability to control how it works and what it does, rather than having the US government and these American tech billionaires constantly trying to interfere in our politics in order to, basically stop the regulation of these technologies to make them align with our values.
Interesting. Thank you. Ben, you want to add something on that?
One of the things I do want to add about that is that this dependence, I think we should really break this dependence by building some alternative, but also really start by taxing them, because it's crazy how, they almost pay no taxes. And our government, the previous government, the Vivaldi government in Belgium, they said, we're going to do a digitax.
Yeah,
they did
I remember that.
This one also said, we're going to do a digitax, but only if Europe is maybe in alignment with And right now they're crawling back because Trump is sneezing. So I really think we're much stronger than that. And I think it's time to really tax the big tech companies.
But is Europe able to get his own technology?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you show that.
And what I would say is that, the goal should not be to replicate what we're seeing in the United States. If you're starting to make a shift in another direction and reducing the reliance on American tech companies, that's a great opportunity to start to question the actual model that has been pushed on us by these companies, to say, is this really working for us? Are we getting the kind of public and social benefits that we expect from it? Obviously, the European model is often associated with, caring more about the social aspect of things than the American model. And we can debate how well that has worked out. But if you're changing the technologies that you're relying on, if you're developing new technologies, that's also an opportunity to say, okay, what has worked from the past 2 decades of relying on these technologies? What has not worked? And how can we try to focus on the things that have worked and improve the kind of broader benefits that we receive from these things, rather than saying, okay, we need our own social media company that works like a Facebook, and we need our own e-commerce company that works like an Amazon, and et cetera, right? How do we think a bit deeper about that?
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think actually, when looking at Europe, and I'm a physicist, so I want to plug in CERN, the particle accelerator in Geneva, because it's true that Americans say that they invented the internet.
Paris said that too.
Yeah, Paris also. Paris said that the Americans invented the internet, but there's a debate.
Yeah.
But in trying to find the what happened at femtoseconds after the Big Bang, as they built in Geneva an entire particle accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
And so this pushes new limits to technology because they had to develop more computation power to analyze all the data, these kind of things. And that's why they started connecting different computers, writing software to be able for computers to talk to each other. And that was like the birthplace of the software behind the internet that we use today. This is some kind of European and international, actually, a development of tech that has been groundbreaking and afterwards used by capitalists to make money. But I mean, this innovation was here, and I think we can learn from this kind of setups.
Thank you. Okay, the last questions from the audience. DeepSeek is partially open source, and the World Wide Web was also based on being open source. Would open source be the future for a system that is non-profit based?
Could.
Yeah.
I think open source has its benefits, has positive things associated with it, but I don't think like it's an inherent benefit. You know, if we talk about open source AI versus closed source AI, to me, a lot of the issues with AI are still present along both of those, right? And even if we think about open source itself, and this is really kind of getting into the weeds, so I'm not going to dig into it deeply, but open source is really kind of a more kind of commercialized rebranding of what was previously the free software movement, right? To make it more open, more accessible to the corporate community. Basically, we see Google and Microsoft and these major companies profiting immensely of the open source movement, which is not to say we shouldn't have open source software or anything like that, but I think we need to recognize that there are benefits, there are drawbacks, and that just because something is open source doesn't mean it's inherently kind of liberatory or what have you. But definitely, I would hope that if we're kind of moving beyond capitalist development of technology, that this technology would end up being more open, would end up being more shared, because you don't have the kind of concern about trade secrets and what have you for companies that are trying to protect the things that they feel make them the most money, right?
Yeah, I think that as Paris is saying, having open source software in itself isn't going to be by definition better. But on the other hand, I do think that you need openness to have democratic control. DeepSeek is very nice, but it's open parameters, and they do explain the way you make it. But I mean, when you need to be way more open about the development, and I think their government again comes in, that we need to build infrastructures that are open, that can be used, that people can check on, so that we know what the technology really is doing, so that we can collectively, democratically decide whether or not we like this technology or not. I think that's extremely important, especially with these AI models coming up, talking about what it's doing, not the big black box, just explaining it. And if you don't understand it, I think it's important that we democratically decide, shall we use it or not, or whatever.
Yeah, it's really a democratic question.
Yeah.
That's you're talking. Last question from the audience. Important technologies which are essentially wrong are weapons in general, and in particular the kind of new weapons that allow mass destruction from a distance. How do you or can we act against this perverse evolution? Ben, as a scientist, do you think scientists have a moral duty to refuse to work on projects like drones or surveillance tech?
Oh, I wasn't expecting that one.
No.
I do believe that the physics community, because basically they or we developed things like the atomic bomb, had a long tradition of left-wing and socialist researchers saying, no, we disagree to work on these kind of projects because we understand that this will cause very, very tremendous harm to people. Like yesterday, we had in the science stand a professor from the University of Antwerp who also started this movement against dual use, because they say, we now start dual use, so we make sure that
what's dual use?
Dual use is basically a promo term to say you do research, and it's for this kind of application that might be that you can explain to people that's good for society, but it by accident can also be used in some kind of military application. And before there was a lot of regulation also in Belgium on this, and right now they're really harking back. They say like, yeah, forget about if it can be used in a different way, and they're even promoting this, saying, yeah, but maybe your technology can also be used in dual use. And it's good because then you can get more funding. And I think we should really fight this militarization of society because, yeah, it's the next step towards war, basically. And I think that's something we should really fight.
Oh, you maybe want to say something about it.
If you want me to.
Yeah, of course, you can. Yeah, do it.
I think we're in a really difficult moment. I won't respond to the point about scientists in particular, but I think we're in a moment right now where the tech industry sees that there's a lot of money to be made from moving more directly and more openly into the direction of kind of selling services, selling artificial intelligence to the military, but also developing tools, even hardware that is, kind of explicitly designed for military purposes. And that is because I think it's for a few reasons, really. I think it's because some of their traditional markets are not making the profits that they used to. And so they're looking for new opportunity. And of course, the military budget in the United States is something like $1 trillion a year. There's a lot of that money that goes to procuring from private companies, from the Pentagon. And so they are trying to tap into money that would have previously gone to Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Northrop Grumman, these traditional kind of military contractors in the United States. And now it's the OpenAIs and the Googles and the Metas that are trying to get a piece of that budget, right? Which can be hundreds of billions of dollars a year. So there's that piece of it where, there's kind of this economic incentive. But I also think paired with that as well, we're seeing this shift in the tech industry where for a number of years, they wanted to present themselves as quite libertarian, right? As having this kind of distance from government, government leave us alone because they didn't want to be regulated or taxed very much and things like that. Even during that period, they were still collaborating with the US government and with the US military. They were just doing it kind of more secretly, they weren't promoting it nearly as much. When we talk about someone like Larry Ellison, of course, he has long been pushing for the tech industry to work more with the CIA, things like that, right? But what we see in this moment is as the tech industry was facing more threats of regulation, of accountability, of taxation, of course, they helped to push this notion that the US would be in geopolitical conflict with China, and that in particular, this was a technological conflict. And so the US needed its tech companies to be strong in order to compete with the Chinese tech companies that were rising and gaining global market share. And so that also plays into their desire to work more with the government because they can say, listen, we are on your side in this geopolitical fight. You should protect us because we are going to be key to your ability to maintain your technological supremacy globally, whether that is true or not. And so there's this real desire to forge this alliance, not just because it's economically beneficial, but then they can use the power of the American government to try to protect their global market share, as we've been seeing kind of Donald Trump and the tech billionaires do over the past number of months, bullying these different countries, threatening them with tariffs if they dare try to hold American tech companies accountable, regulate them, tax them, and things like that. So I think that's all really, like, the military question is very connected with this much bigger geopolitical question.
Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Ben. I hope you will enjoy Manifiesta under the sun and the rain. It's going to be good. We're going to finish. And thank you to the audience. Thank you for your questions. And we see you later. Bye.